There's a certain heaviness to the hours between midnight and dawn, a time when the world feels distant, almost surreal. The hum of life quiets, leaving you alone with your thoughts. They say nothing good happens after 2 a.m., and maybe they're right. But what happened to me at 3 a.m. wasn't just bad. It was something else entirely, something I still can't explain. I used to work the graveyard shift at a convenience store on the edge of town. It was a quiet, unremarkable place, a stop for truckers looking for caffeine or insomniacs hunting for a quick snack. The kind of job where hours stretched like rubber bands, snapping you into moments of paranoia if you weren't careful. For the most part, though, it was uneventful. At least, that's what I thought, until the night a single customer changed everything. It was a Tuesday night, though by then it had bled into Wednesday. Time loses meaning on the graveyard shift. The clock read 2:45 a.m., and the store was utterly still except for the faint hum of the refrigerators and the occasional crackle of the ancient fluorescent lights. I was alone. My co-worker, Jamie, had called in sick, leaving me to manage the store myself. The stillness felt different that night. Normally, the quiet was soothing, but now it pressed against me, heavy and oppressive. I found myself glancing at the security monitor more often than usual, though all it showed were empty aisles. The freezer in aisle 3 was acting up again, its light flickering erratically. I'd grown used to the strobe-like flashes, but tonight, every flicker seemed timed to an invisible rhythm. The shadows it cast danced across the aisles like something alive. At exactly 2:59, the faint chime of the front door echoed through the store. I froze, startled. Not because it was unusual for a customer to walk in late, but because I hadn't heard a car pull up. The sound of tires on gravel usually preceded the bell, but tonight there had been nothing. I looked up, and there he was, a tall, thin man stepping inside. He wore a long, dark coat that seemed too big for his frame, the hood pulled low over his face. His movements were deliberate, almost unnatural, as if he was measuring each step. "Good evening," I said, my voice a little shaky. He didn't respond. He walked straight to aisle 3, where the flickering light cast strange shadows. For a moment, he just stood there, staring at the shelves. Company policy was clear. At 3 a.m., the doors were supposed to be locked unless someone was already inside. It was a rule I followed religiously. Something about the stillness of that hour always felt off, and locking the doors offered a small sense of control. At exactly 3 o'clock, I moved to flip the lock. As my hand hovered over the switch, the man turned his head sharply toward me. The movement wasn't natural. It was too fast, too precise, like a mannequin being yanked into position. His eyes met mine, dark and unblinking, and I felt a chill run down my spine. "You shouldn't lock the door," he said, his voice low and gravelly. "What?" I stammered, caught off guard. "You'll need it open." "For what's coming?" I stared at him, unsure of how to respond. His words made no sense, but the conviction in his tone was unsettling. Against my better judgment, I left the door unlocked. He didn't approach the counter right away. Instead, he wandered the aisles aimlessly, his figure disappearing and reappearing on the security monitor. I noticed something strange. The cameras kept glitching whenever he passed, his silhouette warping and distorting on the screen. Finally, he came to the counter and placed a single item, a pack of gum. "That'll be $1, I said, trying to sound casual. He didn't reach for his wallet. Instead, he tilted his head slightly and said, "You shouldn't be here alone." "What?" "They don't like it when there's only one." My stomach tightened. "Who's they?" He didn't answer. Instead, he turned and walked back into the aisles. Minutes passed, and I kept glancing at the monitor, trying to track his movements. The glitches were getting worse, static cutting through the feed every time his figure appeared. When he re-emerged, he was holding something, a small porcelain doll. It looked old, its once white dress yellowed with age. The doll's face was cracked, and its hollow eyes seemed to stare right through me. "This isn't yours," he said, placing the doll on the counter. I stared at it, unsure of what to say. "Where did you get this?" I finally asked. "It doesn't matter," he replied, his voice distant. "What matters is that it's here now." The store lights began to dim, one by one. until only the flickering freezer bulb remained. I reached for my phone to call for help, but the screen was dead. I knew it had been fully charged earlier, but now it wouldn't even turn on. A low hum filled the store, growing louder until it felt like the walls themselves were vibrating. The man stood motionless, his gaze fixed on me. "You broke the rules," he said softly. "What rules?" I shouted, panic rising in my chest. "They're coming now?" I knew I should stay behind the counter. It was the only place that felt remotely safe, but something compelled me to move. I picked up the doll, examining it under the flickering light. Its surface was covered in strange symbols, etched into the porcelain like ancient runes. The hum grew louder, and then, suddenly, the freezer light exploded, plunging the store into complete darkness. When I turned back toward the counter, the man was gone. But I wasn't alone. Shadows moved in the aisles, shapes I couldn't fully make out. The whispers began then, low and incomprehensible, but filled with malice. I stumbled toward the exit, but the door wouldn't budge. It was as if the entire store had been sealed off from the outside world. The shadows grew closer, their forms becoming more distinct. They weren't human. They were something else, their hollow eyes glowing faintly in the dark. Just when I thought I couldn't bear it any longer, everything went silent. The hum stopped, the whispers ceased, and then the man's voice echoed from somewhere unseen. Welcome to their world. The next thing I knew, I was outside, lying on the cold pavement. The store was dark, its windows reflecting the first rays of dawn. The doll was gone, and so was the man. I quit the job that same day, but even now, weeks later, I can't shake the feeling that I didn't really escape. Sometimes in the dead of night, I hear whispers, soft, almost imperceptible, but unmistakably real. If you ever find yourself working the graveyard shift, remember this: some rules aren't meant to be broken, because sometimes they're the only thing keeping them out. Voiceover ends, ominous music fades. Like this story? Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share. Stay safe, and remember, what you don't see might still be watching. Until next time,